Let's go overseas now. Huge day of news around the world, particularly in relation to Donald Trump, also to Boris Johnson and now Nicola Sturgeon. We're going to have a look at this with Greg Sheridan from the Australian newspaper. He wrote a fantastic column in the paper today about the similarity of the issues facing both Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. And I thought he made a huge amount of sense. Greg joins us now. Always a pleasure to catch up with you, my friend. Who's in more trouble, Trump or Boris?
Well, I guess Boris is finished as a parliamentarian, but Trump might go to jail. So I guess Trump is in more trouble. But on the other hand, Trump might be president as well. In both cases, I think it's a terrible abuse of process. Parliamentarians ought not to be able to expel a member of parliament. I mean, that's what the Privileges Committee was going to do, suspend him for 20 days, which means you can have a recall and you're out of the House of Commons. I think that's tremendously undemocratic. And these charges against Trump, although he may well be guilty of them, similar charges could have been brought against Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton. The convention in America is you don't do criminal prosecutions against your political opponents for what are essentially political actions. You know, presidents leak national security documents to journalists all the time, and Trump is the only one to be prosecuted. Now, I don't like Trump at all. I think he's a despicable human being, but this is politicising the Justice Department. It's discrediting legal processes in America, and of course the Republicans will do it to the Democrats now once they get back into office. This is a very, very bad turn for America, in my view.
You wrote today that the persecution of both Boris and Donald Trump was really designed in part to make sure they never come back, and that you did call that an abusive process in which their opponents are doing as much damage to their country's political systems as anything. I mean, that's an excellent point that you make.
Well, it's kind of you to say, Steve. So in the case of Trump, so he was charged by a New York prosecutor over campaign fund violations because he allegedly paid off Stormy Daniels to not say that they had an affair. Well, it is absolutely absurd that he was charged for that. Absolutely absurd. Hillary Clinton was found by the FBI director to have violated the statutes with her secret, insecure email server when she was Secretary of State, and she deleted 30,000 emails rather than hand them over. She faced no charges. Trump, like most ex-presidents, took a lot of documents with him. Some of them were pretty sensitive. He shouldn't have taken them with him. He should have given them back, and he did eventually give them back. The FBI had to go into a lot of palaver with him to get them back. But no other president would have been charged. They haven't investigated Joe Biden with his documents in this way, and as I say, they didn't charge Hillary Clinton. The Florida governor, Ron DeSantis, said he won't cooperate with any law enforcement mechanisms against Trump. I think it's quite likely that a Florida jury will acquit him. Half the country will think he's guilty, half the country will think he's innocent, and it absolutely trashes American institutions. But the Democrats are doing this because they want Trump to dominate the conversation. They want Trump to be the Republican nominee because they think they can beat Trump at the election. And it is a really, I think, cynical and wicked misuse of the American legal system for partisan political ends.
And Trump was out campaigning again at the weekend, and I note that his poll numbers have gone through the roof. He did remark on what he believes Joe Biden's trying to do to him. Have a listen.
This vicious persecution is a travesty of justice. You're watching Joe Biden. Joe, think of it. Biden is trying to jail his leading political opponent, an opponent that's beating him by a lot in the polls, just like they do in Stalinist Russia or communist China. No different.
And I guess, Greg, that plays pretty well in Donald Trump's heartland, doesn't it?
It sure does, Steve. It sure does. The paradox and, in a sense, the tragedy of this is that if the Republicans could move on from Trump, they have an excellent chance of beating Joe Biden, who's been a poor president. Wild overspending, a ridiculous woke social agenda, over-regulation, and so forth. So if they could get to nominating Ron DeSantis or one of their other governors, they've got an excellent chance of beating Joe Biden and changing America. And that'd be a good thing. But the Democrats realise that while Trump is likely to win the Republican nomination if they make him the centre of attention, it's very unlikely that he'd win a general election, because this makes Republicans feel outraged on his behalf, but it sort of turns off centrist and independent voters. And remember, Trump lost the last presidential election by 8 million votes, and he did very poorly. His candidates did very poorly in the congressional elections, and he lost the 2018 midterm congressional elections. So the Democrats believe that Trump is a loser, and that's why they want the conversation to be all about him. But far from trying to destroy him, really, what they are trying to do is make the next election a referendum about Trump rather than a referendum about Biden. But it's Biden who is the president. And the Democrats claim that they hate Trump's influence in politics, but these politicised prosecutions are designed to keep Trump front and centre in politics. And I think they inject a terrible poison into American politics, because you can be absolutely sure that Republican prosecutors, so this is all the indictments against Trump are coming from Democrat prosecutors, and you can be absolutely sure now that in the future Republican prosecutors will prosecute Democrats in the same way. And that is really a dreadful, dreadful road for America to go down. I mean, when the New York indictment against Trump was made, Florida's Ron DeSantis said, well, we won't extradite Trump, we won't cooperate in any way. So now you've got Democrat jurisdictions and Republican jurisdictions in the United States who won't recognise each other's legal rulings, and that's because of the politicisation of the legal system. I think this is the most contemptible and irresponsible move I've seen in America. It equals, in its perfidy, what Donald Trump himself did to damage American democracy when he refused to accept the results of the 2020 election.
What's it say about the great Republic of the United States and its position in the world when you've got, as you've written about so many times, the emergence of a China?
Well, I think America is in quite a lot of trouble with its internal polarisation, and each side is as bad as the other. So Trump did some good things as president. The great difficulty for any journalist or commentator is to have a sense of balance with Trump. So I thought Trump was manifestly unfit to be president, and all through 2016 I wrote columns saying, you know, I don't care for her, but I'd vote for Hillary Clinton if I was an American. But when he became president, you had to deal with the reality of his presidency, and he did quite a lot of good things. He called out China in a way no other leader had done. He increased defence spending. He made America energy independent. He cut taxes and got unemployment right down, you know, the lowest it's ever been for African Americans and for Hispanics. So you've got to recognise all those achievements. On the other hand, he was utterly chaotic, constantly told lies. He threatened alliances. He made bizarre deals with North Korea. He had some weird love affair with Vladimir Putin. And so he did a lot of bad things and he did some good things. But now, then, when he lost the election, he became much worse than he had been previously, because he tried to subvert the election itself. He tried to get Mike Pence to refuse to certify the election, tried to frustrate the will of the voters. So that was utterly despicable. But his enemies have become as bad as him, because they promoted the fake story of Russian collusion. They politicised the intelligence agencies. They got 50 intelligence professionals to say that Hunter Biden's laptop was Russian disinformation. It turned out it really was Hunter Biden's laptop, and it revealed all sorts of criminality on Hunter Biden's part. They refused to investigate all the quite credible allegations against Hunter Biden and indeed against Joe Biden. And so now each side is as bad as the other, and they are both trashing American democracy. Now, I think America will come back from this, but it's a very bad moment that the country has reached.